This conference will now be recorded.
Hi everyone, my name is Gurpreet. I'm the product manager with Eduloans. Thanks for attending and being a part of the webinar. We're just waiting for a couple of more students to join in. We'll wait like for another 2 minutes. And to the right of your screen, above the settings, you have the chat option. In case if you feel that you want to communicate something to us, you could certainly put in your comments in the chat. And the chat can also be used to ask your questions once the presenter is done with the presentation. So I'll introduce you. I'll introduce the presenter to you in like 2 minutes. Once we know if there are any more students who are coming in and joining us as a part of this webinar. So let's just wait for 2 more minutes. Thank you. Muted. वहाँ भी आ जाओ ना, ये बंद करो ना। अब बोलो, निरंजन को स्टार्ट करना। निरंजन को बोलो। So thank you everyone. We have waited enough now. We will start with the webinar. So I just want to introduce Nilanjan. He's heading InCred for the education loan sector. So he's going to be the presenter for the entire webinar today. Post which he will be taking questions from all of you all, and he'll be giving you answers to your questions. I would be there. You can also use the chat option on towards the right of your screen. You can put in your questions, and Nilanjan will be more than happy to answer those questions for you. We would request you to put in your questions once the presentation is over. Prior to that, in case if you have any queries, you could just jot it down and then ask them once the presentation is over. So we now hand over the webinar to Nilanjan so he can take it further. And in case if you have any queries about the InCred loan, you could certainly call us at the numbers that we will show you at the end of the webinar. Okay, you can call our counselors and they'll be more than happy to assist you with if you have a lot of questions. अरे सर म्यूट किया अपना मैं नहीं कर सकता सिस्टम से करना
Okay, all right. I can take over from here, Gurpreet. Thank you very much for the introduction. And also thank you to your team for putting this webinar together. To the attendees, congratulations on your pursuit for higher education. I have been told that the audience today is mostly MS aspirants for the US. So the presentation today will be more or less directed around US MS studies. However, if you are going to a different country or a course, this will still be helpful to you. So before I start the presentation, I wanted to quickly set the tone right in terms of what to expect today during the presentation over the next half an hour or so. And as Gurpreet mentioned, post the presentation, you can raise questions if you have any, and I will be more than happy to answer them on a first come, first served basis. So today in the presentation, since this is almost month of June has started, this is the time when students are looking for funding options to finance their higher education in the US or another country. Also, you will need to get your I-20 processed for US studies, and then also apply for a student visa, which is called the F1 visa in the US. So during today's presentation, we will cover the various funding options that are available to you to finance your higher education. And we will also then move on and take a deeper look at education loans and how they are helpful, and how, in fact, visa officials and university officials are also helped by them. And then we will talk a little bit about InCred, who we are, what we do. And we will share with you some of the details of various loan products and processes that InCred has to assist you in your higher education financing needs. And by way of introduction, my name is Nilanjan. I am Senior Vice President and Head of Product and Risk for InCred Education Loan. So having said that, let's get started. If we can move to the next slide, that will be great. Okay, so first we will touch base upon the various types of funding options that you can avail to finance your higher education. Well, option number one is family funds. These are typically your parents or family savings, investments, properties, etc., that you can liquidate and utilize those funds for financing your higher education. The advantage is that these funds are obviously very readily available with your family, and you can very easily access them. However, there are some disadvantages with using your family or personal funds. And number one drawback of this funding option is that you are in fact liquidating your parental or your family's investments that can be kept intact, and that will give you higher returns in the years to come. Whatever savings, properties, movable, immovable investments that your parents or your family has done, hard-earned money for last several decades, will get, it will be a divestment of those funds. So those funds can, in fact, be kept intact. And higher returns, for example, if you have a property you're trying to sell, if you hold on to the property value will actually escalate a lot by the time you are done with your studies and you find a job and all that. So it's better to keep those intact. Also, families can go through emergencies in the future, and it's advisable to any family to keep a certain amount of savings aside for such emergencies and not utilize them for higher education, because higher education can in fact be funded by other sources. So that's option one that you can use, family funds. Now, moving on, the option number two are scholarships and grants. And invariably, undoubtedly, these are your best ways to fund your education, higher education. This is basically money that the university or the college is giving to you to come and study there. In fact, in US MS courses, a lot of times students can even end up getting an assistantship once they reach the US. An assistantship is, as the name describes, it's basically assisting a professor in conducting research or conducting his classes or grading his classes, and things like that. And if you get an assistantship or any kind of a grant or a scholarship, it will typically cover some or all of your tuition, and it will also sometimes give you a stipend on a monthly basis to offset your living expenses. While scholarships are a very, very good way to fund your studies, the problem with them are that they are very, very competitive to get. Um, there are hundreds or thousands of students sometimes competing for one single scholarship. So getting a scholarship is extremely difficult in most circumstances. Also, there is no clear framework to apply for scholarships. Every university has their own set of policies. In fact, every department in every university may have different scholarship and grant and fellowship options that you need to adhere to, and therefore you will need to put in a lot of research and apply for these scholarships in a timely manner, and each different scholarship will require different set of time and effort investment. Also, a lot of times scholarships will not cover your entire cost of education, and therefore even if you bag a scholarship, it will cover only a part of your expenses, and you will be left to find other finding options to finance the other part which the scholarship doesn't cover. Uh, the third option that Indian students typically have used uh, in the past are loans other than an education loan. Now, this may be a mortgage loan where you keep your property with a bank and take a loan against that property, or it can be a personal loan where your father or your family member actually takes the loan on your behalf, and then give it to you for you to use for your education. People even take gold loans to finance their education, and this is basically keeping your mom's or your family's jewelry and gold in a bank and taking money against it. Now, while they are an alternative way to finance your education, they are not customized or conducive to your education needs at all. The repayments, which is the EMI of the loan, equated monthly installments, those repayments start immediately upon loan disbursement. So there is no period given to you while you are studying that you don't have to make repayments. They will have to be repaid immediately upon getting the loan in your bank account. These repayments are typically made by your parents or the person taking the loan on your behalf. Also, the tenors may not be, the time given to repay the loan will be much shorter. The interest rates will be on the higher side, and it will not be, that loan will not cover your entire cost of education. That loan will be given up to the value of the property, or up to a certain percentage of the value of the property. And if your property value or gold value is say 10 lakhs, you can get a loan of 7 or 8 lakhs. But your tuition fees may be 30 lakhs. So, again, they will not cover your entire need. And that will bring me to education loan, which is our last option. However, this is very, very, in a very short amount of time over the last 10, 12 years or so in India, education loans have definitely become the number one financing option for students. And that's because education loans are convenient. There are private players like InCred, which have come up, which does a lot of loans, education loans based on the students' merit and credentials, and not necessarily based on the collateral or gold or property or your parents' finances. Also, some other advantage of a education loan is that you do get to pay for your own education. The student takes the loan, and then the repayment really happens after the course, the majority of the repayment, and therefore you are not borrowing money from relatives or family, or selling properties, but you are really paying for your education on your own. Also, by taking an education loan, the student starts building a credit history at a very early age. And since students typically are not very well equipped in the financial world and with financial terms, let me take a second to tell you what credit history is. A credit history is a centralized data repository which tracks the repayment history of every individual and their repayment behavior. So how that individual has taken loans in the past, and how he has repaid them. And if in your credit history there are loans that you have taken and repaid in a proper manner, in a timely manner, then the chance of you getting another loan becomes much easier. In fact, credit histories are the number one assessment method for banks and lenders to give loans. And that's not only in India, but all around the world. Even in the US or Canada, the first thing that a bank checks is your credit history before they give you a loan. Typically, students don't have any past loan repayment history, and therefore they don't have any credit history. And hence, after you finish the course, if you want to buy a car or if you want to buy a house, the banker will face a challenge because you don't have any credit history. So they won't know how to decide your loan application, whether to give you the loan or not. However, if you have a credit history, a positive credit history, where you have taken an education loan for your higher education and you are repaying that loan in a timely manner, or you have already repaid that loan, then it's a really good boost to your chances of getting further loans, after completing studies. So these are the typically four broad ways of financing your education. Now you can use a combination of these four sources, or you can use one single source. The option will obviously be on you, on what you want to go with. But I have tried to give you the advantages and disadvantages of all these options so that you can make an informed decision for yourself and your families. Next slide, please. Okay, now that we have seen the various types of funding options, let's now look at education loan a little bit more and see why education loan is a better way to finance your education uh, from the lens of, say, the university or the visa officials as well. Okay, so the first really strong positive factor of education loan is that it is a very genuine source of funds. The loan approval letter that you will get, the sanction letter or the loan approval letter that you will get from the bank or the lender confirming that you have this loan, is undisputed proof that you have access to these funds. And therefore, as opposed to other funds such as uncle saving or a property valuation or gold valuation, the visa officials, the university officials, as well as you, can have a lot of peace of mind and confidence that this fund, as mentioned on the sanction letter, is for me to take as and when required on a semester wise basis or on a yearly basis. And that the visa official and the university also understands, and therefore they look at education loan as a very, very genuine and solid source of funding which cannot be doubted or questioned. As opposed to that, they may question or doubt other forms of funding that you present to them. The next big advantage of an education loan is the availability of it, that the education loan is sanctioned for the entire duration of the course. And a lender such as InCred will actually give you a loan covering 100% of your educational expenses. And also these funds are available on demand whenever you need it. You can contact InCred or your banker and say, okay, I need so much rupees now to pay for my tuition and for my rent, and the money will be sent to you. Uh, and therefore, why is this important? This is important because a lot of students actually end up going to the US or to Canada or to another country of higher education by keeping the first semester or the first year's funds intact. And they basically think that once I reach Australia or Canada or US, I will figure out how to pay for my next semester or next year's fund semester fees, etc. The problem with that is, being a student, you should focus on studies and not worry about finances and how to pay your next semester fees, once you run out of the initial bit of funding that you have planned for. Uh, Also, the curriculum and the course load in most of these universities in US, Canada, other countries are they're very heavy on the workload. I mean, you will have to study a lot. You have to do a lot of homework. You have to take a lot of tests, do a lot of research, write a lot of papers, and the curriculum and the professors are very demanding of you, not in a bad way, but the subjects are tough. You have to study a lot. Often in India, you study the night before the finals, in certain exams, and you pass the exam. It's not like that in the US, or in other countries of education. You have to study year round. You have to study every day. You have to do homework every day, and therefore you should focus on those things and not on how to pay for my next semester fees. And that's where education loans availability again comes in and gives a lot of peace of mind to students, as well as all other stakeholders, that these funds are available on demand whenever I want it, and I don't have to worry about my next semester fees or where my parents will manage those funds from. The third a good thing about education loans is the authentication factor. And what do I mean by it is that uh, the lender or InCred or the bank, whoever is giving you the loan, they do a lot of due diligence on you and your family and your course and your university before giving you the loan, before approving the loan for you. Also, they check the documents of the parents, they check the documents of the students, they ensure that the student is a bona fide student going for studies only. And therefore visa officials and university officials also get comfort knowing that somebody has already looked at the student and the family and done a lot of work on them and only then approve the loan. And therefore this student and this family, the chances are that they are a genuine set of people. And so the visa official and the university official will take more confidence from that fact, instead of questioning whether this is a genuine student, whether there is some fraud going on in the documents and things like that. So these are typically why an education loan is helpful, not just to you and your family to pay for your higher education, but it is also a good positive source of funds for university and visa officials as well. Can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, now that we have set the tone for why education loans are a good way to fund your higher studies, I would like to tell you a little bit about InCred actually. So InCred is a non-banking financial company registered and licensed by the Reserve Bank of India. We have been lending since 2017. The fall of 2017 was our first cohort or season, and right now we are in our third season with the fall of 2019 aspirants. InCred has several different loan products. InCred has a business and SME loan vertical. It has a consumer or personal loan vertical. It has a auto or two-wheeler loan vertical, and lastly, it has a education loan vertical, uh, which is what I head. Our target market for education loan are Indian students going overseas for higher education, mostly the postgraduate students or the masters or graduate level students. We have so far funded students in the last 2.5 years or so. We have funded about 2,000 students across 25 different universities around the world. Our students are currently attending about 600 plus universities spread across 25 countries in the whole world. And who is InCred backed by? So InCred is the founder and CEO is Bhupinder Singh. You can see him on the screen along with Rahul Dravid. Rahul Dravid is our brand ambassador. Bhupinder Singh, or Bhupi as we call him, is an IIM graduate who was the head of investment banking at Deutsche Bank for a really long time. And then he decided to open up a lending entity in India that will cater to the needs of the financially less fortunate, which are middle income, low income groups. We started with that motive, but we have obviously spread across all different socio-economic strata of the society. Um, InCred is also backed by Mr. Anshu Jain, who was the global CEO of Deutsche Bank, and also Dr. Ranjan Pai, who is the head of the Manipal Education Group. Although InCred, and as I told you, I head the education loan entity, and also my boss, immediate boss, is Prashant Bhosle, who is the CEO of the education loan wing. He also founded Credila, HDFC Credila, about 10, 12 years back. He was a founding member of HDFC Credila country head, and then he has moved on to InCred. And therefore, although we are a less than 3-year-old company, we are backed by and managed by industry veterans who have a lot of experience in the education as well as finance sector. And in InCred, what we do differently is we use data sciences and technologies such as machine learning and analytics to make lending decisions quick and easy and more convenient and also more justified for students. Okay, can we move on to the next slide, please? So I already sort of covered this particular slide in the previous slide. Like I told you, about 2,000 odd students is our current customer base across 25 countries, and the total universities have actually swollen to 600 plus now. US is our primary destination countries. Most of our students, about 80% of them, are studying in the US, followed by Canada, Germany, Ireland, Australia. We also have all other countries such as New Zealand, Singapore, France, Spain, Italy, Sweden, all of that covered. In terms of level of education, mostly master students, but we also have products for bachelor's courses and also for diplomas and certificates and also for executive education. Again, most of our students are STEM students, science, technology, engineering, math related programs is what they prefer. But we also do have products for business courses such as MBA, marketing, master in management, things like that. And we also cater to non-business and non-STEM courses such as fashion and humanities and things like that. Okay, can we move on to the next slide? Okay, so a little bit about our loan program for MS students. So MS students are typically divided into students going to US and students going to other countries, to countries other than the US. How do we look at the loan? Well, we look at the loan primarily. How do we assess the loan is we primarily look at how good the student is. So if you're a really good student, with really good credentials in GRE, GMAT, your past undergraduation, English scores are good, TOEFL, IELTS. If you have work experience, we take all of that into our assessment model. And if you are a good student, the chances are that we will be able to help you out with your financing needs, regardless of how rich or poor or well off or not well off your family and your parents are. For the US, we currently give about 40 lakh rupees of unsecured loan. So this means that you don't have to put your parents' properties or house or any other investments, etc., to get this loan. This loan is given purely on the basis of your merit. So up to 40 lakhs for US MS courses we give in STEM designated fields. And for other countries, we give up to 20 or 25 lakhs. Obviously, the loan amount for US can go beyond 40 lakhs, and the final loan amount is dependent on your university, on your credentials, as well as the cost of education for the program that you are planning to attend. In terms of interest rates, they are very competitive. They are actually one of the best in the market from unsecured loans for unsecured loans, and the rate of interest is completely customized, tailor-made to the pros and cons in you and your application. So if you're a really good student and your parents have good CIBIL histories and all of that, then your rate of interest will be lower. and the rate of interest is linked to how strong you and your parents' profiles are. So if you are a slightly weaker student or have had backlogs, or your GRE GMAT is not that high, then we will still have loan options for you. But the rate of interest for those cases will be higher than the rate of interest for the better GRE, etc. cases. In terms of repayment, we can give you up to 15 years to repay the loan. How you repay the loan is pretty flexible. So during the first 2 to 3 years while you are studying and looking for jobs, we only take very small token payments from your parents. And then once your course is done, you start paying us the EMI. Once your course is done, we give you 12 months to find a job, and then your EMIs will start. And also, application, well, you can apply for this loan at any point. As soon as you have your GRE, GMAT, and TOEFL or IELTS scores, you can apply for the loan. You don't have to wait for a confirmed admission letter. You don't have to wait to get the I-20 in your hand to apply for our loan. We can take applications for students who don't have I-20 or admission. Okay, can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, so I think we are coming towards the end of our presentation. And in this slide, we will do a quick comparison between InCred and other lenders in the market. Uh, so as I told you, InCred's assessment methods are different. While banks and traditional lenders will look at your parents' properties and their income to give you an education loan, InCred primarily looks at your credentials, the student's merit and the student's credentials to give the loan. We are definitely way more student focused. The loan amount also is linked to the cost of education for the course or program you will attend. It is not linked to the value of the property that your parents have. Uh, Margin money, which is a requirement is in most banks, this is a down payment of education loan. So if you want education loan of 20 lakhs, the bank will, if they approve it, it will come with a margin money condition that 20% margin has to be paid. What that means is that they have given you a loan of 20 lakhs, but they will only give you funding of 16 lakhs. So you will only get 16 lakhs from the bank, and 20% margin, which is 4 lakh rupees, will have to be paid by you. And that 4 lakh rupees has to be paid by you first towards the college. Only then the 16 lakhs will be released to you. So this is called margin money. InCred doesn't have any margin money concept. If we tell you your loan is approved for 20 lakhs, you can avail the entire 20 lakhs to fund your education. Repayments are also longer in InCred, as I said, up to 15 years, and on average 12 years. Also, banks may not give you unsecured loan over 7.5 lakhs, whereas InCred can give you an unsecured loan of up to 40 lakhs or more as required. In terms of process and service, well, processing times at InCred are typically about 4 days after you give all your documentation to the InCred person. Sometimes it can take a few days extra, and sometimes we even sanction loans within the matter of 2 days or 1 day sometimes. So the process is all online, and they are pretty fast and pretty transparent, and you will get a reply from InCred within 3 to 4 days of applying for the loan. Whereas in other places or banks, the time involved can be 7, 8, 10, 12 days and or more, and sometimes for banks it can take months, 1 or 2 months to get a loan processed. Also, the way we can release funds, the loan funds, is we don't have to wait for the visa to release your funds. uh, in some countries like Canada and Ireland, Australia also, you have to pay a part of the fees before you even apply for the visa. So a bank will never release the loan funds to you before you have visa approval. However, InCred can release the funds and send it to your university even before you apply for the visa. So these are some comparative studies between InCred and other players in the market. Uh, uh, can we move on to the next slide, please? Yeah. So and with that, we have come to the end of this small presentation. I hope this was helpful and informative to you, and it helps you in your pursuit for higher education and higher education financing. Should you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box as directed by the Eduworld loan team before start of this presentation, and I will take those questions and answer them as they come. So feel free to go ahead and type in your questions.
So thank you so much, Nilanjan. We all would like to thank you for taking your time out and presenting this webinar for InCred today uh, on behalf of Eduloans. So we are partnered with InCred, guys, and InCred is one of our financial partners who does secured, that's collateral, as well as unsecured, which is non-collateral loans. You would find the numbers highlighted on the screen here, where you would see the mouse moving right now. These are the numbers for our loan counselors at Eduloans. So you can feel free to contact these numbers, and our loan counselors will definitely guide you for the right loan option. They will let you know about the benefits of InCred, and they will forward your cases to the team at InCred. We have dedicated relationship managers with InCred who can help you get the loan funded for your studies abroad. So we would be waiting for your questions to come in now. So towards the right of the screen, you can see the chat box where you can type in your questions, and Nilanjan would be more than happy to answer those questions for you. So we'll just wait for your questions to come in. So I feel there are no questions because Nilanjan has spoken everything about the product. So I feel that there are no questions that went unanswered during the presentation, during the webinar. We have just one question that's just come up. Nilanjan, I would just read out this question. So we have a question. My co-applicant my co-applicant had a bank account in Navjeevan Bank, and I was told that it is not acceptable. Can we know why?
Yep, sure, I can answer that. So, look, there is a method called ECS, Electronic Clearing System, which is now rebranded as NACH, NACH, or ACH, as you may call it. NACH stands for National Account Clearing House. This is a tech system offered by National Payments Council of India, which is the government's and RBI's regulatory body that takes care of loan repayments. Okay, how are loans repaid? They're repaid basically through a electronic debiting system on a monthly basis. Loans are not repaid in cash or in check. That was the prehistoric way of doing things when bankers took 36 checks and deposited one check each every month for 3 years to collect repayments on the loan. Nowadays, world over and in India for the last 10 years, repayments of loans have been electronic, and the entire system is maintained by the government through National Payments Council of India and NPCI. Now, National Payments Council of India has this account clearing house or national account clearing house set up that lenders can leverage upon to electronically collect the loan repayments on a monthly basis. And for education loan especially, it is important that we do electronic repayments because our loans are repaid by the students who are typically sitting or based out of another country. So the student is typically in the US, earning there and then repaying the loan from the US, and therefore US checks this, that. There's no way logistically the loan can be repaid by anything but a electronic debit. Now, the limitation of the ACH system, as with any such platform, is that there is a list of participating banks that can avail this service. And if your bank, or if your co-applicant or guarantor's bank is not in that list, then there is simply nothing InCred can do to consider that bank account for repayments. So that bank account has to be in the National Payments Council of India NACH approved list. If it is there, then we can take repayments from that account. Otherwise, we simply cannot touch it. So this limitation that your question is about is actually out of InCred's hands. It's something that the government of India mandates. However, having said that, I do request you to get in touch with the Eduworld counselors that are available, one of the numbers that you see on your screen. And then if you can quote your application, InCred loan application ID, the Eduloan counselor will coordinate with the InCred team and come up with a solution for your case, or we will try our best to come up with a solution for your case. And some of the solutions can be to bring in another bank account or another co-applicant who has a bank account which is approved under National Payments Council of India. I hope I answered your question a little bit, and without knowing the details, finer nitty-gritties of your case, I will not be able to pinpoint how to resolve this. But like I said, please talk to your Eduloan World counselors, and they will get in touch with InCred and coordinate on your behalf. And we will. I cannot assure you that we can find a solution, but we will try our best to find one.
So we at Eduloans will definitely try and take this question that has come from the student, and we will try and assist on the same. The next question that has come up is, for getting a loan in between 40 to 45 lakhs non-collateral, what GRE score and IELTS band do you need from the student?
So again, that's a very open-ended question. The We are actually the only lender in India that doesn't only education loan lender in India that doesn't consider the loan based on just a GRE or a GMAT. We look at several things. We look at 18 different data points of the student, and this includes your GRE, GMAT, and TOEFL IELTS. It also includes undergraduate performance, extracurriculars, publications, journals. It takes into account any work experience or internships that you have done. It takes into account any the program and the university and how good that program and university are in that particular discipline. So all of that is taken into account. So can't say really. It depends. However, if you the minimum IELTS that we will require are about 6.5 of a student. That's our minimum requirement. We have accepted lower IELTS on a case-to-case basis exceptionally, but typically a 6.5 is what you require. And also from GRE, I think if you have a GRE of 315, 320 plus, again, I mean, we look at quants and verbals differently, so difficult to actually pinpoint. But overall combined GRE of 315 or 320 will definitely shoot up your chances of getting a loan in excess of 40 lakhs unsecured.
The next question is, do you provide loan in rupees or dollars?
That's a very good question, actually. It's a good thing that you brought this up. We are Indian rupee denominated loan. Our loans are disbursed in rupees and they're repaid in rupees also. And there are two things that I would like to dwell upon here and go a little bit beyond answering this question, actually. So the first thing is, if we disburse in rupees, how does the university accept the payment? Well, we disburse in rupees into your father or co-applicant's bank account, provided it's a NACH compliant bank. We disburse it into the bank account in Indian rupees, and from there we convert it into dollars, and we send it to your university. So there is no need for you to worry, how will I pay it in dollars when loan is in rupees and all that. We have an end-to-end process. We will hand hold you through the entire process. The money will go into your dad's bank or your co-applicant's bank, dad or mom or another co-applicant. And from there, we will do a Forex transaction, a Forex conversion of converting the rupee into dollars, and then we will send the dollars to that final destination university. So no worries there. And secondly, uh, uh, for the greater good of the student community, I would like to also dwell uh, a little bit upon the differences between a dollar loan and an Indian rupee loan. There are very uh, key differences here actually. A dollar loan is disbursed in dollars and repaid in dollars. Okay, so the lender will release the money in dollars, and depending on the lender, either they will put it in your bank or send it directly to the university. And then when you repay the loan, you have to repay in dollars also. The problem with dollar repayment is if at one point you come back to India in the next 10 years, so mostly loans, education loans are repaid, the time frame given is 10 to 13 or 14 years. So if in the next 10 to 14 years you come back to India and you pick up a job here in Indian rupees, you earn in Indian rupees, but then you are left with the burden of paying the EMI in dollar every month. Okay, and what has happened as the Indian rupee has weakened a lot against the dollar over the last 10 years. 10 years ago, $1 was about 40 rupees. Now it's about 70 rupees. And I think that slide will more or less continue into the future, where the Indian rupee will continue to get weaker compared to the dollar. So what I'm trying to say is, today to pay $1 EMI, say you have picked up a job in India after your US course and you're earning in India, and today you have to pay a loan EMI per month of $1. Okay, so that $1 you will spend 70 rupees to pay that dollar. But then 2 years down the line, if the rupee weakens more, you will, to pay that same dollar, $1 EMI, you will pay 75 rupees or 80 rupees. So you have to factor that in. Once you factor that in, the dollar loan repayment becomes very cumbersome and burdensome actually. To repay, to earn in rupees and to repay in dollars. And even if you are not planning to come to India, even if your plan is to get a job in the US or Canada, settle down there and pay your loans and all that, there are a couple of things you need to keep in mind. One is the purchase power parity. So PPP is a term used by economic houses and economists and the World Bank, etc., to define the purchasing power of the currency. The dollar's purchasing power is way higher compared to the Indian rupee, and what this translates to is the fact that a 10% dollar loan, because of foreign exchange violation, volatility, and also because of PPP, a 10% dollar loan typically is marked up at a 14 or 15% Indian rupee loan. So a dollar loan will only make sense to you if you are hell bent on staying on US and working from there. And you shouldn't be hell bent on staying in the US right now, because right now you are going there as a student, which is a non-immigrant visa. If you give any inclination to the visa official that you want to work there, your visa may get declined. Okay, so you have to keep out those thoughts from your head for the time being. Yes, it's true that after your MS studies, typically you get the STEM for 3 years and then H1B and all that, and you may settle down. But that's not the case right now. So you don't know whether those things will happen. So don't count on them right now, is my advice. And therefore, if you are hell bent on taking a still hell-bent on taking a dollar loan, the price equation, the rate of interest equation, you should get a dollar loan at 4 to 6% and not over that. And in fact, a lot of loans in US are at 2%, 3%. Like if you take a home loan in the US, you will get it at 3 or 4% rate. Okay, but education dollar loans that are available in the market are 8%, 10% price points, or ROI is like 10% on a dollar loan. That's a very high dollar loan ROI. That is equal to a 14.5 or 15% Indian rupee loan. So you need to keep these two things in mind. Okay, so this was a really good question because I wanted to talk a little bit about the differences here. Thanks for the person who brought this question up.
I'm sure your inputs would definitely help students in understanding the education loan product better, Nilanjan. So questions will keep on coming in. What we would do is we would have our in-house team to answer these questions for the students. But we would definitely want to thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule, and we would want to thank everyone at InCred who has tried and made this webinar a success for Eduloans. We would work hand in hand and make sure that students are assisted and guided in the right direction to get their loans fulfilled through InCred. We once again thank everyone for being a part of this webinar, and I hope it was an informative webinar where we got a lot of inputs from Nilanjan. And in case you have any questions, you could certainly put them across. In case you have questions for Nilanjan, you could route those questions through us, and we'll make sure that Nilanjan answers to those queries, and we'll get back to you on the answers we receive from Nilanjan and his team. Thank you so much, everyone. Nilanjan, thank you so much. Is there anything else you would want to communicate today?
No, I actually wanted to thank you and the team there for putting it together, and all the best to the attendees today. Do get in touch with the team here in case you need help with your financing. All the best. Have a great weekend, guys. Thank you again. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you all. Have a nice day. Bye bye.